It is travel corridors during the rut when that buck isn't constantly there all year. He's showing up. He's looking for a certain doe group, checking out a certain doe group, and he's moving on. And you're there during the window of time of when mature bucks are showing up in that spot. And you're not hunting that spot until that time is good.
All right, everybody, got a Thursday Q&A for you guys today. This is take 2 of this episode because last time we got to the last sentence of this podcast and the power went out and we lost it. And that might happen again. You might hear some thunder outside. We're getting demolished here in Alabama by thunderstorms. But Jacob, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, other than thunderstorms. I'll be honest, it's different because we've been getting rain so much all summer long. And for the last 4 days, I think we haven't really had considerable rain. You got rained out a couple days trying to go fishing.
Dude.
It wasn't terrible.
Man, yeah. It's the time of year, which, by the way, everybody, we're going to do 2 Q&As right here on the front end, but then we're going to talk about trip planning. We drew Iowa this year, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, and we got some questions on not only like what we're planning on doing in Iowa, but just general trip planning. Like maybe you're going to a different WMA this fall that you've never been to. Maybe you're going to a different state. Maybe you drew a tag that you've been wanting to draw for a while. So we're just going to talk about some trip planning, have a fun episode. It's going to be fun. But yeah, every time I try to go fishing, dude, we get rained out. It's terrible. And especially got the boat I cleaned it out. I blew it out with a leaf blower and everything. I rinsed it out. I took everything out of it, got it squeaky clean. And then it's like it's the time of year where the thunderstorms are completely unpredictable. Like if you're going to go fishing at 7 p.m., you don't know whether or not you can go until 6:45. Dude, it's completely
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
I was watching the radar before y'all said you were going to go fishing the first night fish, and I was like, I didn't say anything because I'm like, he probably knows it's going to rain. And we got out, and it was thundering and lightning.
Well, dude, it's like it'll rain, a mile away, but you're totally fine. Because they're not like giant storms sweeping across the whole state. They're little supercell thunderstorms.
I saw a meme that I thought you would like. Should have sent it to you. Talking about summertime ultimate man gaslighting, and the in quotes was, it'll probably miss us. Talking about thunderstorms. There was a girl in a boat getting soaking wet while the guy was trying to get the boat situated in the trailer. Yeah. I'm like, that's so true. It'll probably miss us.
Yeah, that happened to us. We went to the boat launch the other day. Me and Tiff were just sitting in the truck, and we were literally watching the thunderstorm. I was like, I think it's going to miss us, but let's give it 10 more minutes. And yeah, it did not miss us. So anyways, let's get to some Q&As. All right, first up, we have got Taylor Dunford from Virginia. Subject is hunting pressured deer.
Southern Outdoorsman Podcast. This is Taylor Dunford asking a question from outside of Richmond, Virginia. Whew. Bear with me. It's sweaty, and I'm hiking back from setting a new camp. Anyways, I got a good stand set up, I believe, on the edge of a field, right? Killed deer there. Nothing big, nothing substantial, but 6 points, a doe every now and then for the last few years. Feel good about it, right? It's kind of positioned in between a bedding area on the neighbor's property and a creek and some feeding area on my property. This is private land. Anyways, y'all been talking a lot about pressured property, pressured deer, right? Hunting patterns, killing a different deer on the same day every year, but also how deer pattern and learn you. And in my mind, that seems all of it just a little contradictory. How can I sit in the same spot every year and expect to kill a deer on X day if the deer are also learning to pattern me and know that I'm sitting there at this time of year, right? I don't understand that. So could you better explain that a little bit? And also, when you say pressured, catch my breath. What what do you really mean? Like, what is pressured? Like, I've got 120 acres and it's me and one other guy that hunts it and, you know, friends on occasion. Like, there's 2 stands. We hunt the front third of the property, really. What like, if we're there every weekend, which we pretty much are during Virginia's hunting season, is that pressured? Anyways, I love the podcast. Been listening for about a year now, right since the end of last deer season. Can't wait to put y'all's advice into practice. Thanks, guys.
Sweet, Taylor, appreciate it. So, man, we're going to have a lot to say about this.
Good looking hat, by the way, Taylor.
Good looking hat, by the way, my man. I think the first thing is...
Let's hit the pressure one first.
Well, yeah, okay. What is pressure?
So pressure, and I thought Dr. Steve Ditchkoff, almost said Steve Salmons, which is biology professor down there for fisheries. Dr. Ditchkoff explained it really well, that pressure is not just you killing deer or you physically bumping deer from seeing you or smelling you while you're in the stand. It's also you being on the property, walking around, leaving ground scent, just human activity on the property. It doesn't have to do anything with you killing a deer or even you seeing a deer and it physically spooks. He says a lot of the worst pressure is just the constant hunting of the same stands over and over again. And deer, even when you're not there, are walking your trail, crossing your trail, and smelling that there's been a human there. That's something we can't do anything about other than being very strategic on when and where and how we hunt certain stands and not repeatedly going back to the same spots over and over again. I was going to lead into something else, talk about how you can hunt the same spots and kill a deer year over year. In regards to that, the guys who we've had on, and I'm going to go back to like Daniel Williams, who's been on the podcast in the past, talking about like that historical success in specific locations where you're killing deer. It's not necessarily you're killing a buck that you had on camera the year before. It is travel corridors during the rut when that buck isn't constantly there all year. He's just showing up. He's looking for a certain doe group, checking out a certain doe group, and he's moving on. And you're there during the window of time of when mature bucks are showing up in that spot. And you're not hunting that spot until that time is good.
Yep.
So you stay out of that location pretty much all year until that date range that Daniel Williams talked about. That 4 to 6 day long window of time of when mature bucks start showing up on camera at a very specific spot, checking doe groups. That's when you hunt it, and you hunt it that time of the year, really exclusively. Outside of that time, outside of other times of the year, you're not really hunting that spot, so you're not pressuring that location where these bucks want to work through to check these doe groups. I could keep running with it. I'll let you say something.
No, yeah, we have another episode coming out later this fall with. Should I say who it's with? From Missouri? No. Okay. Well, a guy who most of y'all probably know. Later this fall is going to be coming out. We talked to him about how he manages his properties and how he manages his hunting pressure, and he said pretty much what you just said. It's not the gunshot or you shooting a deer. It's usually the access and you being in the stand. So if you have really good access and you can go in and out of a stand without alerting any deer, well then essentially that's like there's that thunder. I don't know if it'll come through or not. It's like net zero pressure on the property. If you're not bumping any deer on the way in or out, and they're not walking across your entry and exit route and smelling you after you've left, then you're not putting pressure on the deer. So think of it like that. Another thing I'll say, with guys who have private land and they're trying to set it up to be very huntable, they try to set up a really good either road or trail system on the property where they don't have to walk through a whole bunch of terrain to get to a spot. Like they're trying to hunt right off their little trails or right off their little roads to minimize their impact. So that's just one thing. And then, yeah, like you said, Jacob, when it comes to the whole annual pattern thing, that's not necessarily a spot that you hunt every single weekend or anything like that. That's a spot that you stay out of until that 1 week where the magic happens.
Yes.
And like what Daniel talks about in that episode is when you're setting up a spot or when you find a spot like that, you're going off past data, and what it is there's some does in the area that are going to come into heat, and that's why those bucks are coming through. So it might be like the last week in November or something like that. Your cameras show that, hey, last year there was 2 different mature bucks that came through here. I hadn't seen them all year, and then bam, they just showed up. Or maybe they're deer that you did know about, but all of a sudden they started daylighting. Those are the spots you save, and you don't hunt those spots until that 1 week. And like Daniel, he does it on public, and he's got so many spots. He's basically doing that every single week. Like he's built such an extensive network of spots that he can refer back to, where he's like, okay, last week of October, I need to be in this spot. First week in November, I need to be in this spot. So every week, he's putting himself in that position, and that's why it's worked out so well for him.
Yeah.
The more often you can put yourselves in those positions, the better. So based on what you were saying, your property's pretty pressured.
Exactly.
So I would try to look at it from that perspective. Like, if that's the place you got to hunt and that's where you're going to hunt, then get really serious about your entrance and exit routes.
Now, you can still kill good deer on pressured property like that is getting hunted all the time, but it's during a window of time when that buck who has not been on that property all year shows up, and he does not know what's about to happen to him. So that's where you can still have success, but what you're doing is you're educating the does that are on the property or around your property that's kind of using your property quite a bit, when maybe the bucks aren't spending a lot of time there quite at, on certain points of the season. You're educating the does, and the does shift their pattern just a little bit or get educated where stand locations are at. Then it could lend yourself to not seeing as many bucks because the does aren't working through around some of your stand sites, especially if they're more bow spots, as they would have if it was a little bit less pressured. There's Dr. Michael Chamberlain. We had him on the podcast like 4 or 5 years ago talking about a couple different GPS deer studies that he was part of with the University of Georgia, and they were taking place actually in Louisiana. And one of them, they had a bunch of collared deer on a private hunting club, and they had a buck that got killed by this young kid that they just stuck him in a random spot on a steep little hillside that nobody ever hunted, and the kid ended up killing this really big buck that they had collared. And it was a buck that everybody in the club knew about, but they thought the buck was a wanderer or was a buck that just he was only there for a very short period of time. But based off the GPS study or GPS data they got from that deer, he was living pretty much exclusively on that property, but he never went to bait sites, never went to many food plots on the property, and was never caught on camera. And they had cameras all over the property, which is something that Dr. Ditchkoff just talked about a couple of weeks ago when we had him on, how a buck could be living on your property that doesn't show itself just because of how it's feeling pressure and staying in areas that just doesn't get hunted very often. And that kid killed that deer, and what they learned looking at that buck was he was able to navigate that property, and I think he was 7.5 years old. The buck was based off the study of where the buck was at all times and the stand locations. He would stay roughly, I think he talked about like 200 yards downwind of some of the stand sites, and would never approach where all these does are congregating on feed sites, specifically, again, bait and food plots. So, again, that was a very highly pressured property, had hunters out there all the time on weekends. The buck was able to make it until that kid killed him, but killed him in a spot that nobody ever had hunted. The buck thought he was safe there and got killed. So you just got to be careful. And this is one reason why I started hunting public land back in college. Was the only place I had to hunt was our little family farm. It's 89 acres, stands all over it, shooting houses all over it, food plots all over it. And if you hunt it for a couple weekends early in the season, those deer, you have to walk by where deer are crossing and or are laying, depending on the wind situation, to set up in certain spots. And you just educate the fire out of them. And a lot of times you wouldn't see any kind of decent bucks until later in the rut, which that rut down there is after Christmas. But by that point, the does, they are full aware of what's going on and where the different stand sites are. And you'd be sitting there and you'd have deer come walking up, looking up in ladder stands and lock-ons. So you just got to be careful with it. I mean, that's a really good question. I appreciate you, Taylor, writing that in or submitting your video in, just because I think a lot of people think that just because they're just hunting with a couple buddies on a property and they're not killing anything, that it's not pressured. But that's absolutely what pressure is. It's human presence in where human presence isn't normally at. If you're around the house and there's a house on the place, deer kind of get used to that a little bit. But you start wandering around and they start smelling you and or having bad encounters with you in trees and you're busting them, you're educating the fire out of those deer. So, but
yeah.
Also, I don't blame small landowners. I'm not saying don't go hunt your place. Still enjoy it, but just try to figure out, is there other spots you can hunt, different ways you can hunt it, really paying attention to the wind to get the very most out of it, where you don't feel like you're restricting yourself to only hunt 1 week of the year. Because nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, like keep it fun, man. Like don't get so wrapped up with all this where you feel like you're walking on eggshells. You got to keep it fun.
And Taylor, you mentioned that you're having success the last couple of years killing some, again, you said not really any big deer, but killing some 6 points and some does, that one stand spot. If you're happy with that, keep doing it, man. Like, have fun with it. Not everybody wants to try to go out and necessarily try to kill the biggest deer possible, because I'm still not that person. I like to have fun. You know, if a gnarly looking 6 point comes by and I think he's mature, I'm probably going to kill the deer, mostly because we get 3 buck tags down here in Alabama. But have fun with it. Don't get so much in your head. If it's something you don't think you could do on the property and you don't want to take the steps to potentially try to restrict how much pressure put on the place, try to go find some public land. Walk around public land. I mean, that's what we have it for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to a guy who a lot of our listeners have probably seen by now, and it is his new YouTube channel called Whitetail Research. We were just talking about this before we started. The guy who does the drone stuff. I want to give him a shout out because he commented on one of our videos, and he's like, "Hey, y'all should check out." Like he said something like, "Y'all should check out my channel." Like I did something. Well, in that video, he according to him, he didn't hunt last year, and he just flew a thermal drone, and just filmed deer and like studied them all year, and throughout November and everything. And the reason I'm bringing this up right now, Taylor, is he has some stuff in that video that was really interesting because, one, you mentioned the GPS stuff. To me, his video is kind of confirming a lot of what we've seen with the GPS stuff, but he's filling in the gaps because he's flying a drone up and he's watching the deer all day with a drone. He's not going in and hunting the deer with the drone, which would be unethical. He's filming it and basically recording what it's doing and looking at how it navigates the landscape, where it goes, how it's moving relative to wind direction, which is not something they can really get out of GPS data. And Taylor, I think it'd be a good video to watch because he did such a good job of breaking down, one, where the deer were bedded and then how they were traveling. So you can really visualize like, hey, if you were hunting this area, this is where the deer actually was when he was filming it. Like we know his exact location and what he did. So if you were going to hunt this like how most people would hunt it, here's how you would have messed it up, basically. It was just a really fascinating video, so I'd go check that out. His YouTube channel is Whitetail Research. And as of today, as of this recording, he's only got one video out. It blew up, so good for him. Really interesting video, though, so I'd go check that out. But that was a great question, Taylor. That was a really good question. All right, let's get to the next one. So this one is from Ray from Pennsylvania.
Hey guys, my name's Ray. Just listening to your guys' first Q&A of the season, and had to pull over on my way home from work and ask my question before I forgot, because you know how life gets. But my question is, my son, he's 12 years old this year, gonna be his first time carrying the gun in the woods. Last year I took him along, we had a great time. We played in the snow, went to Dunkin' Donuts, didn't take it too seriously, and at the end of the day, we ended up shooting a nice 7-point together. So my question for you guys is, what do you do to make sure that that first few hunts for those young guys is memorable and fun and gets them the itch? We don't want to be taking them too serious, making them sit 12 hours in a tree stand in the rain. We want to make those first experiences fun. So what are some things you guys like to do?
All right, so we actually have the perfect episode for you to listen to, Ray. It's
episode 646, Unlocking the Adventure, Introducing Kids to Hunting with Chase Metz. So episode 646, it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And we really kind of cover this question because I think Chase has done a really good job with his kids. He's got 3 boys. I think the oldest one, he might be a little older now. I don't know if he had a spring birthday, but I think his oldest son at the time was 11, and the youngest one I think is around 7 years old. And he went over the whole process of how he's kind of got his kids interested in the hunting and the baby steps he took with them in order for them to not only build some woodsmanship skills and learn in the field, but also be proficient with a weapon to go and hunt. And how he keeps it fun with the kids. And I think you did a really good job. What was his name again?
Ray.
Ray, my man Ray. Ray, I think you did a really good job, kind of what you said last year with your son. Y'all ended up having success killing deer, but also, if y'all got bored or he got tired or cold, you didn't force him to be out there. And I think that's a huge part of it because I think we all know that we all probably have examples in our lives of whether it's people that we personally know, family members and or friends who maybe took it a little too serious with their kids when it got into specifically deer hunting, and it kind of burned the kids out. Maybe they started them too young, they took it too serious, and it just wasn't fun for the kid. They weren't trying to educate the kid on why they were doing what they were doing when they were in the field. And the kid, by the time they get to high school or sometimes college, just doesn't care to hunt anymore because they got burnt out from it. They didn't enjoy it.
Yep.
And I think that's a huge aspect. Anybody that I've seen who got their kids into hunting, who are still hunting later on in life, they kept it fun, but they also showed them the reasoning of why they do what they do. And it's not just like, oh, we hunt for the food or we hunt for, trying to kill a big buck. But when they're in the field, showing them and educating the sign of, why they're sitting certain stand locations versus another, while they're hunting a certain style based off the time of the year and the rut or whenever they're going out there. And they're constantly trying to help slowly educate the kid and make it fun for them so they're learning something while they're in the field. Because again, a kid, especially a young boy, is very curious. And the more you can kind of teach them kind of the little baby steps along the way, the more fun they're going to have with it. And hopefully by result of them learning some of that stuff also gets to have some success in the field, hopefully getting their first animal, getting their first deer. And it builds a little more confidence where they're like, I want to continue to do this with dad or uncle or whoever it is.
Yeah. And Ray, by the way, see you in your uniform. Appreciate your service. Also, on that same note, if you're trying to teach your kid why and everything, if you don't know something, if they're wondering about something and you don't know it, that's a really good opportunity for both of you to go learn that together. And that's just another way you can kind of make it more interactive and fun. But one thing, I think it was actually Cuz Strickland when we interviewed him back in turkey season, Cuz from Mossy Oak. We were talking to him about the same subject because he's big on getting kids into hunting, and he's mentored who knows how many kids and now grandkids. He's got a bunch of grandkids that he's got out in the woods all the time, and he says that the main thing is when you start taking the kid hunting, whenever you're with them, it's not your hunt anymore, it's their hunt, and so you just need to make sure that they're comfortable and that they want to come back next time. So even though you might be really ambitious and you want to go out there and you want to kill a big buck, sometimes what it takes to go and put yourself in the position to kill a big buck is just a little bit too much for a kid, and it's not fun anymore. And like you said, we've both seen it, like you mentioned, that usually the more hardcore the dad is, the less the kids end up liking hunting. There's exceptions, but a lot of times a lot of guys we interview even, there'll be
Clay Newcomb mentioned it.
Yeah.
Because I was editing some videos from him, clips from his podcast. He was talking about his dad was so hardcore of a bow hunter.
Yeah.
His two other brothers, Clay's two other brothers, don't really hunt anymore.
Yeah.
Like they just, like Clay said, he thought he got just enough of that fatherly love and the passion to kind of like keep him on that path of hunting.
Yeah.
But his brothers weren't like that. So there is something to that. And what we're trying to say also is try to make the kid comfortable. We're not trying to necessarily not looking at it from like babying the kid, but you're trying to cultivate a passion that you have maybe decades of experience doing.
Yeah.
A kid does not have that right off the bat, and they don't have the patience level. They get cold easier, all that kind of stuff, hungry, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying like bring an iPad into the tree stand or in the deer woods.
Yeah.
But while you're taking the kid out there, try to cultivate that the thought process of we're trying to learn something new every time we're in the field. Mm-hmm. And pass that on to the kid and kind of learning together. We have quite a few followers who've written to the podcast who have younger kids who listen to the podcast together because we try to keep it pretty family-oriented, PG for pretty much all the interviews. Not a lot of cussing or anything like that on the show. And they get to learn together. And the kid can kind of hear some of these stories and some of that kind of stuff to kind of hopefully get them a little more engaged and excited to go and excited to learn more and have success that way. So
Yeah, definitely agree. Also, that's why I'm such a big proponent of small game too, which my daughter is only 2. So it's not like I'm taking her out there and like teaching her about rubs and scrapes or anything, but we still take her out. And she did a couple deer hunts with us last year, and we actually killed a deer on one of them. And she had fun. Like we just, again, made sure she was comfortable, low expectations for ourselves, put ourselves in an easy position, to get in and out of. And it worked out really well. But the other thing I did with her, even at such a young age, is like taking her on rabbit hunts with beagles. And man, she loved that. Just watching the dogs run around, she thought it was hilarious. She was laughing. She was playing with some of the dogs. Like,
You don't have to be quiet on small
don't have to be quiet.
Squirrel hunt.
I mean, a lot of times, like we're standing on a road or something, wait for the rabbit to come out, and she's just standing there with me. And sometimes she's watching, sometimes she's playing in the dirt. As long as she's having fun, and that's what I'm gonna keep doing with her. So it's a fun subject. Not everyone has kids that they're trying to get into hunting, so only a portion of our audience this will relate to. But if it does relate to you, I'd like to know in the comments on YouTube, maybe what you're trying with your kids right now. What do you think's working? What do you think's not working? So,
one last thing on that is you're getting your son ready to like shoot his first year this year with a rifle. We mentioned this the first time we recorded this, and power went out, but
lost it.
Yeah, but there's something to, and Chase Metz talked about this with his boys. He's starting them out with the 22. And using a 22, if you have a suppressor, or silencer, suppressor, and you can have a suppressed 22 where it's like super quiet, or you use a pellet gun, BB gun, whatever. Getting them proficient at a trigger pull and gun safety, but also, again, being proficient with that weapon and understanding the safety aspect of never pointing the weapon at anything you don't intend to shoot or kill, it can be super, super helpful. But getting them build confidence shooting with a 22 and then slowly working up to a slightly larger caliber until they kind of get something that you feel confident they can deer hunt with, whatever is legal in your state. There's some states you can hunt with a 223, some it's minimum a 243, or if you're in a straight walled cartridge state, of course, a 350 Legend or so. I can't remember if it was Chase, or actually it was another guy that we had on. I just can't remember his name. He did this with his daughter, where he got her very proficient with the 22. He ended up getting a 243, or maybe it was a 6.5 Creedmoor. He never let her shoot that gun, but he had a 22 that she got very proficient shooting for 2 seasons, 2 years, and then put the same scope that was on the 22 on that rifle, took her out, and she shot her first deer with that. I think he had it suppressed as well. But she didn't notice the recoil, because I think a lot of kids are scared of the recoil, the kick. Yeah. I think that was me growing up, same thing. Like we had this sense of awe, but also nervousness around bigger rifles, because it wasn't necessarily the felt recoil. It was the loudness of the gun with the actual, even with earmuffs on, or earplugs in. And it was just a scary situation. But I think if you can slowly work him up to getting comfortable shooting, because I think one thing that a lot of people do wrong is you jump straight from like shooting a pellet gun or 22 to like a 7 mag or a 270, 30-06. And it's not only is the gun heavier, it's a little more awkward, especially for a kid. Their facial structure, unless he's super developed at 12 years old, is smaller than an adult human, especially an adult man. And it's hard for them to line up on the gun and get the sight and everything correct. So a lot of times they're cheating their head off the gun to get their head off the stock in order to like look down the scope.
Yep.
And then when they go pull the trigger, it smacks them in the face.
Yep.
If you want to get a kid super gun shy, them getting scoped is a great way for that to happen, which is not great for you. So again, light cartridge, light caliber. If you can get a suppressor, get a suppressor. They have super fast turnaround times now. It's like crazy. Like I've had 3 guys buy a suppressor in the last 2 weeks, and they got it back within a week, or got the suppressor in a week or less. But a super light cartridge that again is capable of killing a deer. 243 is fantastic, but it's light recoil, and so they feel more confident shooting that gun is going to be huge. You don't want the kids super scared of the gun from the aspect it's going to hurt them from the recoil and getting scoped in the face.
Yeah, definitely agree. So yeah, y'all let us know in the comments maybe what you're trying with your kids.
As you guys hear on the podcast all the time, we talk about mobile hunting for whitetail, staying mobile in the field, not always hunting the same spot twice, and really checking out new ground. If you're interested in getting into mobile hunting this fall, you need to check out the Mobile Hunters Expo in Dalton, Georgia, August 8th through the 10th. This is the 3rd year of the Mobile Hunters Expos in the Deep South, 2nd year in Dalton, Georgia. This is something we've been going to for 3 years now, and it's a great resource to try to find and learn new gear that you can be using this fall to make you more mobile and more efficient as a whitetail hunter. All the top brands in the mobile hunting community will be there, where you can try a bunch of different saddles, sticks, tree stands, and much more. If you're interested in becoming more mobile this fall, you can check out and get more information at themobilehuntersexpo.com and buy your tickets today. We look forward to seeing you in Dalton, Georgia, August 8th through the 10th.
So it might be the off season, but we're still always thinking about whitetails. And if you're looking to get more mobile this fall and you're looking at saddle setups, the two most common designs you're going to see are a single panel design or a double panel design. They both have their advantages and disadvantages. A single panel design is going to be more comfortable right out of the box, while a double panel design is going to be much more adjustable and customizable to your fit. We always say on the podcast, saddles are kind of like boots. Different people are going to like different things. As a general rule of thumb, I found that heavier set guys typically like a single panel more than they like a double panel. But other than that, it's just really a matter of preference. I personally use both of these saddles. This is the Method 2 from Latitude, and this is the Lone Star from Latitude. I will say that the Method 2 is really nice because it's a two-panel design. It's almost like you have a built-in back band that'll take a little bit of pressure off your back when you're sitting down. But if you're just getting into saddle hunting and you want something that's extremely comfortable right out of the box, the Lone Star is going to be your go-to. It has an advanced hip pinch reduction system in it, so right out of the box, this is going to be very comfortable, and you're not going to have the hip pinch issues that a lot of people have when they first get into saddle hunting. So if you want to be more mobile this fall, check out latitudeoutdoors.com to see these two saddles and a bunch of other mobile hunting gear. We've enjoyed them a lot, and I think you're going to enjoy them too. All right, guys, we're out here today. Got a little in the field tip for you. We're scouting this fresh clear cut. I think this was cut sometime in the spring. We identified this using onX's recent imagery layer. This image is about 2 weeks old. They update this every 2 weeks, so you're getting brand new satellite images. So we were able to find this beautiful clear cut. I mean, look at this. This looks like where a lot of big bucks get killed in the south in rifle season. So we're actually using this tool along with the topo map to walk and look at this low spot over here to see if we can find a good rifle setup for when the rut comes in a couple weeks. So we're gonna walk over there and check that out. In the meantime, if you want to access this or any of the other features available with the onX Elite membership, use the promo code SOUTHERN and you can get 20% off.
All right, next up, we drew Iowa. Drew Iowa, baby.
Yeah.
So super excited about that. We're going to be going out there in November. Going to be doing a rut hunt. And I just wanted to go over real quick kind of what we're planning on doing there, what the game plan is going in, and how we like to plan these trips, maybe in case you're thinking about doing something like this year. Maybe you drew a tag. Maybe you are going to go somewhere where you don't have to draw. We know that we got some buddies going to Kentucky for the first time this year. And just kind of go over like our process and what we've learned, because we've been traveling for probably 8 or 10 years now, just going to different states. Sometimes it's Tennessee, sometimes it's other places, Arkansas, Georgia, North Carolina, did Kansas last year. But to start off, what's your game plan going for Iowa?
Well, it's a little bit different for me because I've hunted the same unit twice now. So
Late season hunting.
Yeah, but
I haven't rut hunted it yet.
I haven't rut hunted, but I've hunted it. This will be the third time to hunt it, so I have a pretty good lay of the land. The big things for me specifically on this trip is finding, since I already have a pretty good lay of the land, and at least where deer are at late season, and seeing where some of the past rut sign has been, is finding super quality bedding areas that these does are going to get stacked up in around quality food sources, and where multiple of those bedding areas connect, and having travel corridor rut funnels in between them. And the place sets up a lot like that and sets up really well for that in a lot of spots. So I've kind of casually gone and looked at the map a little bit more, looked at onX, and kind of dropped some pins, but a lot of it I have a pretty good idea of kind of, not saying where I'd go show up November the 4th and hunt for sure, but spots I'd definitely go spot check and confirm. But the real big thing is something that I've been looking at is the crop history on some of these places.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically for, again, where you're going to find those is quality food source. The biggest quality food source I've seen up there outside of native browse is corn. Mm-hmm. Okay? If you can find corn, there's going to be does. You're also going to find hunters. That's going to be part of it. But if you can find where the corn is at, and with good doe bedding and some good travel corridors leading off of that, 400, 500, 600, 700 yards away, you could be in the money, I think, specifically catching a buck cruise and catching where these does are coming back to bed in the morning, laying back down, these bucks coming through spot check in a bunch of areas. So that's what I'm looking for. Using the U.S. crop distribution layer on onX, super helpful for that to kind of find where you can see where they've been planting corn at to have a better idea once you get boots on the ground, kind of what's there. But that's super, super helpful. The other big thing is access. There's a few more permits that get put out for...
Well, time out. Let's back up.
Oh, okay.
Let's back up. Crops. How do you go about finding crops? Find out what the crops are.
The U.S. distribution layer, crop distribution layer on Onyx.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying, what I've been using. And you can mark all those fields with that. So you can select, I think it's like 19 different agriculture
Types,
I guess you could say. The only ones I'm caring about is corn and soybeans. It's pretty much the only thing they plant up there that I've seen outside of CRP. But just looking at just corn, like where's corn laid out in relation to CRP, cedar thickets, more brushy areas, because a lot of the timber I've walked around there is wide open. If it's big timber, it's wide open timber, unless there's some kind of storm damage. But yeah, using that layer specifically to find where the corn is huge.
Yeah.
So finding that, then looking at CRP, looking at cedar thickets, brush lines, stuff like that. That's where the bedding area is going to be at, and then what connects all that together for a buck to be able to go cruise through.
Yeah.
And when I've seen that in the past, in areas I've walked in late season out there, you find the scrapes, you find the rubs in those spots between all of that, where everything's kind of merging together, kind of like spokes on a wheel, all come to these center points that the deer can kind of funnel through in order to get to different food sources and bedding areas.
Yeah, definitely. You can use the promo code Southern to get 20% off your OnX membership. So make sure y'all go check that out. The one thing also that you mentioned that I wanted to touch on real quick is the first thing you said is, you've got history with these spots, but even though you've got history, we might not just go out there and dive straight in and start hunting them. One thing that has burned us, mostly me, but both of us, time and time again, as we've traveled over the last couple of years, no matter what state we go into, is getting fixated on spots on a map. Especially for me, again, because I'm a map guy. I love maps. I love studying maps and marking spots and kind of planning my hunt out. But I tend to get way too attached to spots I find on the map. And I'm like, this spot checks every box. It makes so much sense. Like, deer are going to be walking through here. I'm 100% confident. And I'll go and I'll jump in on that spot and I'll hunt it like 2-3 hunts. Maybe not the same exact spot, but maybe I'll jump around 2 or 3 hunts on these spots that I'm real interested in. And, I waste basically 2 or 3 days hunting spots that might not be that productive. And then I've got to go start over and I've got to go find new areas that look good. And I've kind of wasted part of my trip. What we did in Kansas last year that was different, that ended up working out really good for both of us, is when we showed up in Kansas, we had the spots picked. Like, we had areas picked out that we were interested in, but we spent the first 2 full days. It might have been 3 days or 2.5 days or something. Those days we were literally just walking all day. We just walked.
Driving and walking, yeah.
Driving and walking all day. Hey, what does this cover look like? Looking at the map, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is like a cedar thicket or something that's going to hold deer. And then day one, you get out there, you drive straight to that thing, check it out, and then drive to the next one. And then you're ground truthing and you're seeing what you were looking at on the map, especially if this is an area that you're not familiar with. It's got different habitat types that you don't really know what it looks like on the ground because you've never been there. It's helpful to go and put eyes on it and then look at OnX on your phone while you're standing there and being like, okay, so that's what that looks like on the ground. And then you can go around and identify that. Perfect example of this is in Kansas, the plum thickets. Out there in that prairie, it's just wide open prairie as far as you can see, and there's little bitty timber lines around the creeks where there's trees right on top of the creeks. But as the hills went up, once those little drainages that go up into the hills peter out, there's no trees on it or anything. It's literally just like a depression, like a ditch going up a hill. But at the tops of them, there'd be a little plum thicket, maybe like the size of 2 trucks parked next to each other. And it's literally just a bunch of plum trees with no leaves on them. And the deer were in those things heavy. I mean heavy. And you're just out in this big prairie. It looks like there's nothing there, but you get to looking at those things and you'd see deer in them. Or you walk up to them and they'd be just beat up with sign. And so that's something that when we got out there, we were like, oh, look at that. And then it's something I didn't even notice in all the time that I've been looking at maps before we went to Kansas. And then we got out there, saw there were deer in it. I could look at the map and say, okay, well, let's go find that somewhere else. And you go and you replicate it over and over again. So all that to say, don't get so hung up on a spot on the map where you just dive straight in and hunt it. I mean, you can do that if that's what you want, and that's what's fun. I mean, I find that fun. But I'm more successful when I don't do that, and I go and I just check spots, and I scout, and just give up those first couple days and just scout, and you'll be more productive on the back end. Again, did that in Kansas. The first or the second full day of hunting, I killed my buck, and then you were in really big bucks for the whole entire week after that.
Yeah, and also, especially for the out-of-state trips, if you can not just get a confirmation of what certain habitat looks like on the ground versus what it looks like on aerial imagery, like on OnX, but also if you can actively see deer and what they're in, and a pattern just by driving around, especially if you're in a decent deer density area, or just based off where you're seeing sign, and then look at the map and be like, find something that looks like an area that you've been jumping deer or seeing deer or whatever, but on other parts of the map, even if it's on private land, and you see them using like in Kansas would be a great example. Like you just saw how much they were sucked tight to these creek drainages. There'd be no water in them, or very little water, if any water, but they'd be sucked tight to these little drainages. And then you pull up, and it might be it's on private. It's 3 miles from public, but I'm looking at on X. I'm like, okay, where are creek drainages that go through public that are very, very long? I say very long, like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles long or longer. Creek drainage that goes to the prairie. And then where does that cross public? And let me go check that out. And that's what we found, a little 35-acre parcel. That's how it's set up. And there were big bucks coming through it every single day we were there.
Yep.
And by God, should have killed 3 of them. Okay? But you know what? It didn't happen.
Hey, sometimes it's like that.
The hardest part sometimes is just finding the deer. But that time the hardest part was just trying to get a shot.
Driving around out there also, one thing that was helpful about Kansas, and I want to do this in Iowa this year, is that first day or two when you're just driving around like that and you're seeing deer during the day. Like we saw a couple bucks driving around, but we saw a bunch of does. And we would see does, like me and Seth when we were riding specifically. You'd be, again, in one of those big prairies, and hey, there's 2 does standing there, and you'd like pull up and you'd be watching them, and then they'd turn around and they'd run off, when you stop the truck. And then you just watch and see where they run to. And it's like, oh, they went down into that little whatever it was, like some kind of cover. Because you can learn from that. Like when you see the deer and they see something they perceive as a threat and they run off, and you see what they run into, you're like, okay, they feel secure over there. And we were doing that around public specifically. So we were just driving around these dirt roads, checking out public, seeing the does like run off in there. And that's how we found your spot. The very first day that we got to Kansas, I was coming up to the house, and I think y'all had beat me there, and I was the last one in. And I drive past that parcel, and there's like a nice 8-point buck standing right there on the public. I'm like, dude, there's a buck right here next to the house. And it took us like 2 or 3 days, or it took you 2 or 3 days to like go check that area out. And then when you went in there, you're like, oh, this is it. and y'all were in them. But seriously, you can learn so much just from driving around. And I think with Iowa this year, I'm just going to try not to overthink it on the maps. I think I'm going to mark a bunch of spots, which you've always been good about this. Like Jacob will mark spots on the map, and a lot of times he doesn't do it till we're driving to wherever we're going to hunt.
Yeah.
And we'll be sitting in the truck. He's like, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this.
I don't need 800 pins on a place. Like, that's just too much.
Yeah.
I'd rather look at, like, what is the top 5 or 10, not just parcels, but specific spots on parcels that I'm interested in.
Yep.
And then getting there and also looking at through the lens of what is the most obvious spots that I'm probably going to find people at.
Right.
Because I'll still drop a pin on it, and I'll go double check it and see if someone's been sitting there. If they have, maybe I don't hunt it. If there's no sign of people and there's a good sign there, maybe it's worth hunting. But yeah, like mark 10 spots that look good, and then don't overcomplicate it, and let's get there and confirm.
Yeah.
And then see, like, while you're there, where are you finding the signs, specifically the tracks? Where are you finding big tracks at? Yeah, where are you finding rubs and scrapes? That's great too. But where are you finding big tracks at? Where are you finding big tracks with does? Where are you finding just doe tracks? And then where are you finding deer feeding? If you get that, you have a good idea of, okay, what are they using? And then I can pull back up on the maps and like, what can I find that looks just like this, but in a different parcel? I can show up there. Sometimes you have the bow or the gun, stand, saddle, everything with you. Walk in there and get close.
Yeah.
Get close. Because, again, there's a pattern to that. if you're hunting a big enough area where all the habitat's pretty similar and you can find what deer are using on one parcel of the public, you can go 15 miles north, south, east, or west. If it sets up similar, there's probably going to be deer in that same kind of parcel as long as the pressure hasn't been too high.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, another little caveat to this. If we're going to, like, Georgia, like when we've hunted Georgia and North Carolina and parts of Tennessee, that wasn't quite as bad, throwing in on a spot and getting burned, because you're hunting stuff that's similar to what I'm used to. Like hunting here in central Alabama, when I go over to central Georgia, I'm basically hunting the same kind of stuff. And so I have a lot more luck going straight into a spot and just finding what I'm looking for. But when we have gone to places that are way different than what we're used to, specifically areas with a lot of agriculture, and especially when we went out west, like we've hunted Wyoming twice, and even going to Kansas, once you get out there, it's almost like I might as well have not looked at the map, especially Wyoming. It was just so different, where I'm like, it took a couple days of just driving around and learning the area before we like really figured out what we were doing out there. So the more different it is than what you're used to, the more that's going to play a factor, I think. Like you really need to take time and tromp around and scout and find the deer and figure out what you're looking at on a map.
And if we're walking around scouting, I still have my saddle, my sticks, and my bow in my hand. Like I'm not going without it on a scouting trip.
Yeah.
When you're going out of state, if it's in season, of course, talking in season, you show up and you get 7 or 10 days or 5 days, 3 days, whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
Carry your stuff with you.
So yeah, I'm just gonna mark some stuff I'm interested in. Hopefully not overthink it and get out there, ground truth it, and then find where the hot sign is right there, because it could be a really good funnel. You could find a really, really good funnel on a map and it looks perfect, and then you get there and it's just not happening right there. Like it's just not going on in that spot at that time. So you've got to shift and you've got to find where they're hanging out, where they're spending time, and then buckle down on that and spend your time on that really good spot. But find the spot first before you start hunting. I think I find the spot because I get overconfident in reading a map, and then I burn up a couple hunts doing that. So anyways, that's the big thing. Another good resource that you've done several times on some of these trips, and even here locally in Alabama, contacting a biologist or a game warden.
Yeah, if you can, I've done that for Arkansas, Tennessee, and Iowa. If you have an area that you're really interested in going to hunt, finding the local, if it's state managed public, like in the South, a lot of times it's WMA, some places call them conservation areas, wildlife areas, whatever. They'll typically have listed somewhere on their website, on the area map, whatever, the area biologist that's overseeing that property or properties. And sometimes it'll mention a game warden, or you can just figure out what county it's in. You can call the state DNR and you can talk to a game warden in that area. But talking to either one of those people or both of them to figure out, kind of confirming what you're looking at, as in if there's a certain quality of buck that you're wanting to hunt, it probably makes sense to go to a county that they're more readily available and that people kill a little more often. There might be more pressure there, but if you're looking for that, or if you're looking for deer size, deer numbers, if you're checking for, if you're going out west or Midwest and how the EHD's been this fall, call in like September, especially if it's over-the-counter state, especially an over-the-counter state you're about to go to. Call in like September, like, what's the EHD reports?
Yeah.
Have y'all been seeing a bunch of dead deer? If that's the case, maybe I don't want to go to that side of the state. Maybe I go to a different side of the state, or so on. Or go check out some other public land and call around there and ask them. All that's super helpful. That's helped me specifically during turkey hunting. Like when I hunted Arkansas, I was originally looking at this one piece public that I've deer hunted. And I'm like, I've seen turkeys there. I don't think there's a lot of them, but there's turkeys. And I called it was actually the game warden. And he's like, dude, I would not hunt there. And actually, I saved his contact. Every now and then I'll talk to him, maybe a couple times a year. But it's like, I would not hunt there because on that huge piece of public, we get like 2 to 3 turkeys checked in a year. He's like, if you drive an hour the opposite direction, you will find a lot more birds. Still not a ton, but a lot more birds. And it was super, super helpful. And he actually gave me names for a couple different roads to go check out on the public. And we found turkeys on those roads. Or like down those roads on that public. So a lot of them are super helpful. If you're just really respectful, calling them and asking them, some pointed questions, you can learn a lot very quickly before you ever get there and get some confirmation whether or not it's worth you going to those specific pieces of public.
Yeah, they want you to be successful.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, that's a really good resource. Okay, now when I interrupted you earlier, you were talking about special permits. You know, if you have to get a driving permit for a certain place.
So you brought that up from last time. I ain't talked about it yet this time.
Yeah, you did. You started talking about it, and I interrupted you about the crop layer.
Oh, anyway.
Come on, son.
So this is another reason why it's worth calling. Double and triple check if you're going out of state. Making sure you know exactly what permits, license, and tags you have to have, especially for over the counter. But even if it's a draw state, just double check. Boating permits, access walking in permits, parking permits. I've seen it all pretty much everywhere. Double and triple check, because you don't want to try to think you're doing everything right and you forgot this one little permit. Like say you go to out of state, and this is big in a lot of states. You buy a big game license and then they have a deer tag. Well, you might not realize that you also had to purchase this $25 archery tag. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Or a little $30 WMA or state forest permit, whatever. There is all kinds of little things like that that you need to double check before you get there, because you don't want to think you did it right. You get out there, you get checked, you don't have one of these small permits, and then you get a big ticket for it. Potentially, I don't know if they're going to confiscate stuff, but get a big ticket for not having everything, all your I's dotted and T's crossed. I find a lot of that on the state's Game and Fish's websites for different state agencies, but also if I have questions, I always call. Double check. Even something as dumb as if you're going on a late season hunt, double checking, happened in Mississippi, what amount of square inches of blaze orange do you need?
Oh, yeah.
Because I was prepared for Mississippi.
I was not.
You weren't, but I came prepared, so it was all good. But like in Mississippi,
Meaning Jacob had an extra vest.
It's kind of gets when we start talking about gear here. Just those stupid things, or it's not stupid. Those simple things of like blaze orange. What's the blaze orange requirements? Like Alabama, it's 144 square inches, which is a blaze orange hat with a small logo. Like you can't have like multicolored print blaze orange hats. Mississippi, you got to have a vest and a hat.
Yep.
There's a lot of states that are vest and a hat, or some it's just a vest that you need. Double checking all that too will help simplify just a better process for you. So if you get checked, everything's taken care of. You have no worries. You don't have to worry about getting a ticket as long as you're doing everything right while you're there, not trespassing, and you're not poaching.
Yep, 100%.
Also, I was going to say the vehicle permit. Double check on some piece of public land.
Yeah.
So on X, if you click on a piece of public land, I always try to go on X. If you pull it up to a piece of public land, you click on it. Sometimes it will give you a website. It'll tell you the whole name of the place, but it'll give you a website. Especially for federal ground, specifically refuges, waterfowl refuges. A lot of them you can deer hunt. Check on the individual regulations for that place before you ever go hunt it, because some of them have weird season dates that do not match the statewide seasons. Some of them, I know some waterfowl refuges that close November 15th. Like you cannot deer hunt that place or hunt anything on that place after November 15th. Other places have, again, access permits that you have to pay for, like parking permits. I found that out this turkey season while we were driving around. I found this one piece of public land. I was like, man, this looks real good. I clicked on it, and it was weird. I had to research it for like 3 hours in the truck to even see if you could hunt it, let alone whatever regulations. And it turns out it was open for public access, but you had to buy a day use or an annual parking access permit to have a vehicle in the place and access the place. We paid for it. It was all good. Great. But if you didn't do that, it was a really good way to get it, get a big ticket and or get in a lot more trouble. So simple things like that, just double check and look at.
Yeah, the last thing I usually do before I go hunt somewhere is I'll call the state and either just call their DNR or whatever, or local game warden and say, I'm coming on these dates. This is what I'm hunting. This is what I'm hunting with. And I'm planning on hunting this WMA, this national forest, this refuge, whatever the case may be. Is this what I need? And I'll confirm. I'll read everything off. I'll say, I got my whatever permit. I got this. I got that. Is there anything else I need? And just ask them beforehand. Save you a little heartache when you get out there.
Another good state for an example is Missouri. Because I think you and Zach were talking about a long time ago about going hunt there.
Yes.
They have the season dates.
Yeah.
And the license are different based off the seasons. So if you were going to go there mid-November or later November, whenever the gun season is, but you're just going to bow hunt,
Yeah.
you have to have that gun permit.
That happened to us when we were in
College, right?
Yeah, we were in college. We were both in community college in Birmingham, and we got like I can't remember if it was the fall break or the Thanksgiving break, but we got some kind of break in November, and we were wanting to go up there and bow hunt a refuge in Missouri, and it just so happened that break happened right when they went from bow season to gun season, and I was doing all this research, and we were getting ready to go, and I called them, and I did what I was talking about. I'm like, hey, I just want to confirm like we're good. And they were like, if you're going to come and hunt that week, even if you're hunting a bow-only refuge, which is what we wanted to do, you have to buy that gun permit if you're hunting during gun season. And I think it was like $250 or something for the bow permit and then $250 for the gun permit. And I didn't have any money, so we couldn't do the trip because I couldn't afford to buy both of them. And it's like we'd get up there and we could only hunt for like 2 days on using the bow. And then even if we continued to use the bow, we still had to buy a gun permit, so we couldn't go. But that saved me a ticket because I would have went up there and I probably would have got caught and got a ticket, not knowing that you had to do that. So do that. That's a good tip.
Yeah,
for sure.
Do your due diligence.
Do your due diligence. But when it comes to actually just locating the deer, I mean, one thing that we found that's just always worked is kind of like you said, like keep the map scouting pretty basic. Talk to the biologist, try to figure out what you think is going to be the bedding cover and what you think is going to be the feeding and what you think are going to be the funnels. And then when you go out there, just take the first, if nothing else, just take the first full day and just ground truth it. Go out there, check it, make sure that you're on target with what you were looking at before you got out there, and then, buckle down and hunt it. That's really what it boils down to. So I'm excited about Iowa. This is going to be fun. Mm-hmm. We might go up there and scout. We might not. The summer's kind of crazy with traveling and trade shows and all kinds of stuff. So maybe we get up there. Maybe we don't. We'll see.
One last thing is equipment and gear. Anytime I go on an out-of-state trip or even a trip here in Alabama, and it's like a weekend-long trip going somewhere, as long as I'm not camping out of a truck, if I'm staying at a place, I always carry a boot dryer, dry out boots, especially in colder weather. Because there's nothing worse about waking up in the morning, it's 30 degrees, and you have wet boots, and you're just gonna have wet feet all day long. There's nothing worse than that. We talked about this the first time we recorded. I kind of simplified everything. I try to carry one saddle. Carry is pretty much my Lone Star saddle from Latitude. My sticks, carbon sticks, one pack, maybe a pack frame if I need one potentially, but a pack. And then I always try to carry a small lock-on, hang-on tree stand. Just for certain circumstances. Sometimes when you go, especially some of these Midwest states, the trees are really gnarly, super limby, and if you're facing into the tree with saddle hunting, it can make your shot angles kind of hard versus if you're sitting in the saddle, but you have a small lock-on platform, like little hang-on tree stand that you can carry in with you that straps your backpack real well, use as your platform, but then you can, if you need to, you can put your back up to the tree and shoot out through the limbs. It's super, super nice and handy. So I always try to carry one of those with me. And then also recovery gear. Specifically, I have I forgot what it's called. They're on Amazon. Bass Pro Shop carries them too. It's a jumper cable box to jump your truck if your battery goes dead. It's like $100. It's the best $100 you've ever spent. I've had to use it a couple times the last 4 or 5 years, but I've actually helped other people jump their car off instead of having to carry jumper cables. You just hook it up, turn the button on, and it'll fire up. Super nice. That's really, really handy. Plus, having a really good spare tire in your vehicle is super critical. Don't have a dinky little spare tire if you're going out of state trip. And make sure you have, it sounds stupid, but you'd be surprised how many people I've run into that don't have a jack in their vehicle. They don't know how to change the tire. They don't know where the tire iron is. They don't know where any of that is.
Why are you looking at me? We just had this happen when we went to Arkansas.
I'm like, where's everything at? Like, I think it's under the back seat. You had everything. You had everything.
It was in there somewhere.
But like, you'd never change a spare tire on, and we were trying to figure out because your truck's weird compared to my truck to get a spare tire.
So I hadn't changed
dropped.
it. I've changed a spare. I've changed a lot of spares, but I hadn't changed one on that truck.
Yeah,
and we couldn't figure out because it had some lock on the back.
It was the jankiest GMCs. Listen, cool trucks. By God, they make it look complicated to change a spare tire, get the spare tire drop out. But that kind of stuff, I do know someone right now who doesn't have a jack and or tire iron or anything in their vehicle.
Who is it?
I'm not going to tell you. I'll tell you afterwards. I don't want to hurt.
Is it a sibling?
No, I don't want to hurt their feelings. But just having that simple recovery gear in your vehicle and making sure you know where it is and how to use it will make your life so much easier. Not if, but when you need to change a tire on the road. Just gonna say that's for everyday life too. But
Yeah.
like, just make sure you
Life
have that.
advice with Jacob Myers.
God,
What did we learn?
there's nothing worse, and it's never happened to me, but I know people it's happened to. You have to change a spare tire, and like you can't find the jack, or there's not a jack, or there's not a tire iron. Especially out in the woods. I had to change a tire last year on National Forest, where I was way back on National Forest, and I got back to the truck after doing a 2-mile loop back to the truck late at night. Didn't kill crap, and I go to drive, and I pull 30 feet from where I parked at, and I can feel the tire go, or the truck go, wong, 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 because I had my rear right tire was flat. Changed it right there, no problem. Got everything taken care of, threw the spare on, it's all good. But also, my truck is like, I have to change spare tires probably twice a year on that thing. I eat some tires up, some places we go. But just, again, that simple stuff will make your life so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you have any more questions on out-of-state trips or anything like that, make sure you write them in. The video Q&A submission form is on our website. It's a whole tab up there. If you go to our website, southernoutdoorsman.com, go to the menu, you'll see it says Lister Q&A. Go drop those down there.
Typically put the link down in the video description, the show notes as well.
Yeah, it's down there too, so you can go hit it down there.
But yes, and also if you were listening to some of these past episodes, again, Dr. Ditchkoff, you've got
Scott Seals,
Mark Tatum, Clay Newcomb. If you listen or hear any of these podcasts over the last couple of weeks, or even old podcasts, and a question comes up, kind of like Taylor and Ray, since especially Taylor earlier, the first Q&A had wrote in, again, submit those video Q&As and we'll answer those on those podcasts. We love doing them. They're super fun. And actually, come to find out, a lot of you viewers and listeners out there really enjoy them too, because a lot of you, if you have a question, there's probably 1,000 other listeners or viewers out there that have the same question. So it's great when you can submit those and we can answer them on the podcast.
Yeah, 100%. You got anything else?
Nope. Just watch for new apparel drop coming soon.
Oh, yeah.
Very soon. Very soon. Some really good stuff. We'll see you guys at the World Deer Expo, July 11th through the 13th, coming up very, very soon. Got a booth there. I think it's booth number 605 or 606. If you're right there, you're going to see us. So come to the World Deer Expo in Birmingham, Alabama. We'll get the Mobile Hunters Expo in August. And in late July, we have the GON Blast Expo over in Georgia. It's going to be fantastic. Those 3 shows, come say hi, come buy some apparel, shake a hand, tell us a deer story. But other than that, catch y'all back here on the next episode from the Southern Outdoorsman. And remember, guys, y'all stay Southern.